people don't realise how big Spike Island is. It's 104 acres. Inside the fort, it's just around 23 to 24 acres. Spike Island was never built, the fort here, for a prison. It was built as a military fort to defend Cork Harbour, the second biggest natural harbour in the world. All this was built by the Royal British Engineers and military. Some of the convicts were used in the labour of the fort. So this is the entry into Fortress Spike Island. So when you go through here, this is the only way into the fort and it's the only way out. And it was a convict prison with the military here as well, the British, in 1847 to 1883. And it did become the biggest prison in the world, with over 2,500 convicts here at any given time. This is the 1916 building. And as you can see over here, we have the A block. And now way over, the one that looks like a church, because it was a church when the British was here, this is the C block. In 1855, the latest thing happened. Unfortunately, one of the prison wardens was brutally murdered in the A block by 2 convicts. So they decided to build the punishment block. And this is the only purposely built building on Spike Island as a prison. Spike Island was also known as a silent island. So communication was not allowed on the island. So some of these convicts weren't even allowed to talk to each other. Many of these men would be heard laughing one minute, crying the next minute, and shouting out loud. And mental illness was a big issue here because of the isolation of these men that were put in here. The cells are fairly small, but we've evidence that up to 15 convicts at any given time were put into one of these cells as well. So overcrowding was a massive thing here on Spike Island. Inside here, this is like what it would be for the convicts when they were leaving Spike Island to go to Van Diemen's Land. So for an example, if you look closely, you can see that this represents, this man has a badge, C3, who could have been here for just robbing food, but you also had very dangerous men here as well. But they were all put in together, so you can just imagine what must have happened on the way over to Van Diemen's Land here as well. You also had the modern prison because Spike Island opened in 1985 as a prison and it closed in 2004. But then again, most importantly as well, is in 1921, during the War of Independence, approximately 900 Republican political prisoners were held here too on Spike Island, so it was used as a prison then as well. And the whole prison closed then in 2004.
The riot on Spike Island started on Saturday night, the 31st of August 1985, and it started here in this block, which is called A block. And it started when some of the prisoners in there set fire to the timber floors. I was based in Cork prison at the time, and of course reinforcements were sent for, and most of us were actually sent down here. And it finished then on the Sunday evening when they ended up on top of C block, and that's where the riot finished around 5 o'clock on the Sunday evening. By coincidence, the Republican internees that were held here in 1921 were also in A block, and they rioted later in 1921, did considerable damage there as well. So in effect, A block was destroyed in 85, but was very, very extensively damaged in 1921 by the Republican internees.
Many came into this island, but many never actually left because we've got evidence of about 1,500 men who did die on the island. You know, we haven't fully found the rest of the convicts yet. Many people would say there must be a lot more than we have on record. So, you know, we must get closure on that too, and we will be doing projects on that in the future as well.